Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
No fidget spinners in here.
Alex, yeah, I tried to put my fidgeter down because it was a very loud fidgeter and it was going to be picked up by the microphone. So I didn't want to ruin our pod.
He's learning. He's a professional podcaster now.
I'm trying one day at a time. Soon we're going to have the sign right here in the background and it's going to be great.
Oh, he's giving it away. He's giving it away.
Man. It's a teaser. They call that a tease in the biz.
They do.
So Alex, what do you want to jam on today?
Okay. So I've been getting a lot of questions and they all, how do I want to word this? I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of comments from kind of like in the market from our customer base, just kind of like more or less triangulating around how many tests should I be running? And this comes like in a few different flavors. Like I've heard this asked as how many tests can I run at the same time? How many tests should I be targeting to run in a week, a month, or a year? Or like, hey, what's too few? What's too many? But like TLDR, how many tests should I be running is getting a lot of airtime right now.
Great. I've also been hearing a lot of this. And as I've been talking a lot about our agentic offering and people ask us like, well, how many tests will you run in a month? And I actually think that that question is not a good question. How many should I run? Can I run? There are elements to it that are good questions to be asking, but I think that the question in and of itself is like improperly framed. So that's my hot take. I guess if I were to say one perspective is that as you think about productivity and I think about like, what is the work that I'm doing? You can measure my work in output and outcomes. Number of tests is an output. I run 4 tests a month. That is output. The outcomes is what is the lift and the impact of those tests. What I would say is I want to run as many tests as I can to generate the outcomes that I want to generate and the outcomes that I want to get to. So I would definitely change the framing of the question from how many tests should I run, which is an output question, to what are the goals that I want to achieve, which is an outcomes question.
I love this because one is how do I keep myself busy? And the other is like, how do I achieve something? And I mean, you and I have talked about this before where it's like, hey, how are you doing? I'm busy. Busy with what? Like being busy is not in itself good. It can be if you're working towards the right things, but like being busy on its own doesn't really mean anything. And in a previous jam, we were talking kind of adjacently about this. And then I ended up with this line of like, it's not about planning the tests. It's about testing the plan. And what I meant by that is like, it's not necessarily how do I fill up the next 2 months with potential experiments or tests to go do. It's, hey, what are we talking about right now? Like, are we trying to get more people to opt into subscription? Are we contemplating turning our subscription only business into a business that also offers one-time purchases? Like these plans or these objectives or these things that we're going to go chase allow me to slot experiments to achieve, like either get certainty or understand those, or what you were saying where it's like, hey, how do I chase these particular outcomes? Do I have a number in mind? Am I trying to move a particular metric? Okay, we can put a few things together for that. Or I think strategically we should move in this direction. Is that a good idea? Is it a mistake? Is it going to do nothing? Is it actually like a terrible idea?
Yeah. So test the plan, not plan to test. And I think that framing things as outcomes, if you know what you're trying to go after, there's no known path to get there. And so you can't say it is going to be in 4 tests or 1 test a week or 6 tests over the next 6 weeks or something like that, because you don't know which tests are going to win. You don't know why they're going to win. You don't know how impactful things are going to be. You need to learn and adapt on the fly. The second part of the answer is that there is some truth to the fact that you cannot just test indefinitely, because you want to make sure that you don't have interactions between your tests to potentially create confounding results in the analytics. So there's a lot of strategy around how do I run tests concurrently? How many of those tests can I run concurrently? And how do you do that effectively? So one of the factors is going to be just around volumes of data. And so how much volume of data is going to affect how many tests you can run concurrently or how long it takes to run those tests. There's also two dimensions that I think you can run across. One is like the visitors that come to your site. I want to test visitors who are coming for product A versus product B if they're very different funnels, different landing pages, different types of visitors. So you can sort of like segment the types of tests based that way. That's one dimension, is based on the visitor in the funnel. The other dimension is like where in the funnel. And I think that you could run a test on a landing page and measure things like clicked through to PDP, conversion rate, added to cart, etc., top of funnel metrics, while also testing something bottom of funnel like shipping rates or checkout. And you're looking at checkout completion, like all of the different steps of checkout flow. And you could run both of those tests at the same time, even on the same visitor, and those shouldn't necessarily have confounding an impact. So there's a few dimensions to that which are reasonable to consider.
Yeah. I like the where in the funnel, and especially like you even went a layer deeper there where it's like, hey, I'm going to test landing page effectiveness, but I'm going to go in knowing that I'm evaluating that test based on click through, like add to cart, like whatever it is. Like I'm going to look at these top of funnel metrics and like I'm scoping it to that, even though the test might show you profit per visit, revenue per visit, like you can see all these metrics. It's like I'm going in with the hypothesis that I'm going to move X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to focus there while concurrently running a different threshold for my free shipping, or like you were saying at checkout, where I'm actually looking at something completely different here so that I can keep those separate without necessarily needing to set up like a complex web of this needs to be mutually exclusive with something else that's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the metrics, if you have a hypothesis, which you're suggesting, you should go into every test with a hypothesis of why it's going to work. And so as long as the hypothesis for those two are very, very different, this works because I'm going to increase PDP click-through, or I'm going to increase add to cart. This is working because I'm increasing like AOV at checkout or whatever. Measure those things. Obviously, like at the end of the day, understanding the impact on conversion rate, revenue per visitor, profit per visitor, those are the outcomes that we're trying to drive at. But you should understand, what is the hypothesis? How does this all ladder up to those outcomes? And, you know, if you see the things moving in the right direction, that should give you confidence that that's working or it's not.
Yeah. And I think like another thing you were alluding to before is like, how many tests is it going to take to get an answer to this question? How many tests is it going to take to move a particular metric? It's going to be hard to know until you start. And like something we say here all the time is like the answer to one question might just be 5 new questions that come out of that first experiment. So like how many really depends. You might get enough learning off of the first one to draw a solid conclusion. You might find something else that's like, oh, that didn't go the way I thought it should. Here's 3 new ones that are going to go. And like a lot of times it's, again, like planning the test. Like sometimes it's just get started on one kind of bigger idea and the tests kind of like come together from there.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of inner like feedback loops. I'm running a test right now with one of our customers on checkout upsells. We're 24 hours into the test and we're seeing a drop off in checkout completion in the groups that have a checkout upsell. And so the question is, hey, is the placement of this checkout upsell causing friction in the checkout completion process? We're seeing really strong signals of that. We might decide to end this test early and restart the test with a different placement, just because it's like, hey, it's not worth this risk. The data is suggesting that this is happening as we go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like, okay, this is a mobile problem. Okay, we're only seeing the data in mobile. You know, like all of the data matches the potential hypothesis that there might be a problem here. And so it's like, okay, let's end this and start another test. So now, you know, like I said, we're only 24 hours in. The plan was not to run 2 tests in 2 days, but that's what we're going to end up doing because we're learning as we go.
Yeah. So you hit on something at the beginning of this where how many tests can I run in a week? How many tests can I run in a month? And I think a lot of times people put like too much value on that. Like you were saying, like, oh, let's get to 10 tests this month. What would your advice be for, like, obviously we have a lot of people who are like in seat running these tests at brands. We have a lot of listeners who are at an agency with someone on the brand side who's like, I need 10 tests.
Yeah.
How would you arm those people to have the conversation around? It's not about how many tests. It's not about being busy. It's about pursuing an outcome or getting the answer to a question. Like, how do you arm that conversation?
I guess I'm going to make the assumption that we're all talking to rational people here, and that people who can understand nuance and understand details and are rational. Obviously, there are people who are less rational or less detail oriented and nuanced. So assuming that we're talking to rational people that understand nuance, I think that being able to orient ourselves and are like around outcomes and agreed upon outcomes, and as long as we can have a shared understanding of like, what are the goals, what's the strategy, why are we doing this work? I think so often, and I was doing some introspection in the context of, I use AI and I consider myself to be more productive because I use AI. But then the introspection I was doing is that just feel good work? Am I doing more work, but not actually being more productive? And so I think sometimes the output, the content that we generate, the documents that we've put together, the analysis that we've done, the messages that we send in Slack, that's all output. And we can make ourselves feel good by thinking that we've done a lot of work because we've made a lot of output. But I think that what we really want to understand when we think about productivity is achieving outcomes. And so I would think that anyone who's having the conversation with someone else about what are we trying to achieve here, that conversation can be anchored around outcomes and strategy and goals. And then therefore have the conversation of, well, these tests are the way that we get there. How many tests I run relative to like the outcomes that we achieve, it may be more, it may be less, but what we're really going for is the outcome. And I think that that's hopefully resonates.
Yeah. And I think like what I've found myself, I've had a few conversations on like the agency side over the last week. And what I found myself recommending on like trying to escape this, I need a certain amount of tests argument is, I think when you are thinking of testing as a tool, you convince yourself that if I take 10 swings, I'm more likely to find a winner. But if you take 10 bad swings, you're striking out every single time. Like it's just swings for the sake of taking a swing. So what I've been finding myself saying is like, okay, you need to figure out what is the strategic priority? Like how can I get into experimenting on what does my founder care about right now? What does the CMO care about? Like, what are some of these things, strategic directions that are happening inside of the organization? And how can I insert my ability to experiment, my ability to personalize, my ability to test to help gain more confidence on that direction, answer some questions that are happening at this kind of strategic seat? Because then it's not necessarily, and then now it's no longer a question of like, how do I get 10 tests in place to take swings? It's, hey, how can I work myself into this kind of like higher level conversation and provide value there? Like you're saying, pursuing an outcome rather than being busy. So I think like my number one piece of advice on this is don't get like, if you're being put into a corner to get like 10 tests per week out the door, don't try to like fight your way out of the corner. Go a level higher and be like, there's actually like clean air up here.
Yeah.
When I have that type of conversation.
100%. I think that sometimes it's just exactly being able to elevate the conversation and take a step back and try and see the forest through the trees.